All right, so we've taken a look at how we can apply these materials to our masses and some of the visibility settings. So what I want to get into now is how we go about creating an in-place conceptual mass. So I'm going to keep going in 3D here just because I like the functionality of just being able to rotate around freely. So when I go over to massing in site, I'm going to choose this option right here, Inplace Mass. And I'm going to call this Inplace Mass. Let's call this entrance. Okay, so I'll call that entrance, and I can see right off the bat, because the show button is enabled, what my current reference plane is. It's this guy right here. So if I just start drawing in here, basically I should be drawing on this plane. So let's give that a shot. I'm just going to start off with a simple extrusion. So choosing my rectangle tool, I'm just going to come in here and drag that out, and I'm just going to give it any old dimension because I'm going to get specific here in a second using these tools here. So I'm going to go to that dimension tool up in the ribbon, and I'm going to get this face and dimension it to that line segment, and then do that over here as well, just so that I can give these specific values. So you'll notice that when I hover over any of the line work that I've created, it gives me the whole rectangle. So I just want to get one segment. So I hit tab to grab that segment, which activates my dimension here. I'll type in 6 for 6 feet and do the same thing on this side. And we'll have 6 feet. And then the last one I want is to just grab this front edge, and we'll say that that's going to be 18. Okay, so now if I grab that rectangle and I say create form and choose the solid form option, it creates the mass for me, and it gives me a dimension that I can use to create the height of this guy. So I just put in 28 feet, and now I've got this new form. So if I want to carve out a space for an entrance here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a void form to do that. So back in the create tab, we're going to go back into, I'm just going to use lines to do this. Okay, so I'm going to start anywhere here. I'm going to go, oh, if you didn't catch my mistake there, I didn't set my reference plane. So I need to draw this on the front face of this form. So now now I've got the right reference plane set. And right now I'm seeing green and this transparent color. To make this easier on you, if you change this to hidden line, you're going to see what reference plane you actually have selected. So let's take a look. I'm going to go back to lines, and I'm just going to draw a line that goes up 10 feet. And then I'm going to mirror this one across using a drawn axis. And then we can do one more line that does the bottom. And then let's do a little bit of a vault here. So I'm just going to use my art tool, go from side to side, and give that a full 180. So now I've got everything that I need to create this void form. So I select my closed profile again, and then go back up to create form, and this time choose void form. And notice how the line work for the voids is like a pale orange color. So that's how you tell the difference between one or the other. Now, I just want you to see something else too. If I grab this guy and I say create solid form, okay, it pushes out from the geometry. I can still move that back using the gimbal. And now I've got a solid within a solid. So if I select this one that I just created, and hit tab to get the whole form, you can see over in the instance parameters I can change this from a solid to a void after the fact. And if we kind of rotate out here, we should be able to see that. So if I'm happy with what I've got here, then I'll just hit the finish mass. But what I want to do before I get out of this first mass that I've created is I'm going to select the entire form. Again, just use tab to get the entire thing. And then up here, we're going to use schematic warehouse for this entrance as well. Okay, so that's your most simple mass, is just an extrusion. Okay, let's take a look at some of the other ones. If we're going to keep going with this conceptual mass, if you remember when we were in the last videos, we created this whole parametric framework. But in the project environment, we don't really have a parametric framework. We've got levels and grids. We can put some more reference planes in here that we can use if we name them. But what I might want to do is just go back to my floor plan and maybe put a couple grids in here, or put some more levels in. So if you went to your elevation, we could grab these guys, and I'm just gonna copy these in for the time being. I don't really need the views, so I'll put these up at 10-foot increments, and maybe I'll just do the last one is gonna go to the top here. So get that locked up. Okay, so now I've got some more reference planes via the levels. Okay, so if we go back to 3D and we get back into our massing and site tab, we're going to go back to Inplace Mass, and I'm going to call this one office entrance. Okay, so this is going to be on the other side here. We'll do this one a little bit more interesting. Let's take a look at the Revolve tool. So if you create a Revolve as an Inplace Mass, what you'll need is a reference line. Okay, so I'll click on reference. I've got the line tool enabled. I'm going to go from the top to the bottom here. So again, I still need to set my reference plane, and we've got that stuff enabled. So let's go from midpoint to midpoint. And you'll notice that when I select the reference plane, there's a reference line, sorry, there's a number of other reference planes on it. So a reference plane is infinite, defining 3 points essentially, or defined by 3 points. The reference plane has a start and an end point, but each of those points have their own hosted reference planes. Okay, so it's more for later on possibly. So now what I want to do is draw another closed profile in here that I can revolve around this axis. So I'm going to switch over here to my spline by points tool, and actually let's just look at this orthographically first. And there we go. So now I'm going to draw again on this face, and let's just draw something, a little hourglass shape in there. I'll hit enter to end the spline, and I'm gonna finish this off to close it up, and I'm just gonna draw it relatively close. Again, I don't really care about the little gap that's going to be in here, because I'm only going to be using the outside face of this form. Okay, so we'll go down to the end, down to that point there. And now I've got a closed profile that I can use for this revolve. So again, I'm grabbing that closed profile. I'm going to select my reference line and hit create form, solid form. And you'll notice that when you create the revolve, it's going to automatically give you a full 360-degree revolution. So I'm going to grab the entire form, and I'm just going to put a 1 and an 8 in front of that. And that should give me the side of this that I want. So there's that little gap that I was referring to. Okay, now what if we don't really like that and we want to make some quick edits to it? We can grab this form. There's some really cool tools up here that you can use. You can x-ray this, okay, to see how it looked before you revolved it. If you don't want x-ray, just go back to the form and uncheck it. So it's kind of like a visibility setting. You can add edges. So if we come in here, this is actually more like adding a profile. But let's just see if I put in a couple more of these edges here, and then we go and we select just a single edge. Watch what happens when we modify these. I'm going to start getting some points. Okay, so I can push that out. I can push it in. Maybe this one we want to push that way in and down. Okay, so we can keep doing that to modify how this looks. If I push that out, it's going to kind of flare it out at the top. Okay, so let's give that a shot. All right, so if I'm happy with that, then I'd be good to go. I think I added a material to the other one, so I might as well do that on this guy as well. We'll say that this is going to be office. Okay, so there's your revolve. Now there's a couple other ones in here as well. So you've got your sweeps, right? And you've got a loft. So we could do something that kind of looks like this as a loft instead. So let's try taking a look at that. We'll just put that over here on the, we'll do something out here to the side. I'm probably not going to keep these, so let's just take a look at lofting. Okay, and so the reason this is why I created those other levels was so that we would have these to choose from. So if I go to set my reference plane, I'm going to choose level 1 here first, and I'll just go in and draw any old rectangle. Okay, now I'm going to go to the top view, and I'm going to set my reference plane to 3. With my rectangle tool enabled, I'm going to put in a minus 4 foot offset, and we'll do this again. And then change this to, say, level 5. We'll take the minus off there and add, let's add a 1 in. Okay, so now I'm starting to flare this out at the top. And let's change this last one, we'll say level 6, and back with the rectangle tool, we'll give this a minus 4 again. Okay. So now flipping this up, you see I've got all of these they're close. Oh, it looks like this one didn't go to the right plane. So I'm just going to select that rectangle here, and we can change the host after the fact. So I'm going to say 6, and it pops it up to the level that I wanted it to. So it was kind of a happy accident, I guess, for all you Bob Ross fans out there. So I don't want this thing to like connect or intersect here, so I'm just going to do a couple more quick edits. So I'm going to use my align tool, grab the face, and then grab that edge, it ties it back in. One more. Okay, now I've got those two that are at that face. Okay, so watch this. If I grab all of these at once, so just selecting them using the control to add them to the selection, and I say create form, then I get this sort of curved edge thing going on here, okay, which is pretty cool. But if I undo that and I grab this one and say create form, and then get the top of this guy and this guy, we say create form, and then the top of this guy and this guy, create form. I'm getting a little bit different sort of look here, right? So just trying to point out some of the behavior of how these form elements come together. Okay, so this one I'm not going to bother. Why not? Let's keep it in there. So the last one I want to show you guys is a sweep. Okay, so we'll do just a simple sweep around this edge, and to do that I'm going to go to put reference lines in. So reference lines are going to be my sweep path. So first things first, let's set the reference plane to be the top of this element here, and then I'm going to use the pick lines option and just grab some of these faces. Okay, now the one that I grabbed back here, I don't want that to go the full length, so I'm going to take that line and just bring it back to that intersecting edge there. Alright, so that's what I'm after. Now I need to create a profile that I'm going to sweep around that edge. Okay, so this could be some big built up I don't know, like some fascia that projects out from the wall. You know you're going to fill it in with some sort of framing, but at this point you just don't know. So let's draw something like that out. So set reference plane, we're going to choose that face now, and just go to our line tool, and I'm going to look at this straight on. So I try to leverage the view cube and orthographic positions for the sketching, and then picking lines or picking faces I'll be typically in an isometric view. Alright, so let's draw this guy in here. So just going to come up a little bit. We'll go out 3'6", come back down 5. We'll do a small arc, maybe back down again, and then over. Okay, and I think one more segment. Alright, so there's a closed profile. There is my sweep path. Select the two of those, and if we say, oh, we got a warning here, what's happening? We got highlighted lines overlap. Okay. Interesting. I have 2 model lines in there. Ah, see, there's a culprit. Let's get rid of that guy. Not sure if that would have given us a mistake, but probably. So let's just want to make sure we don't have any situations like that. So I have my closed profile, my sweep path. Let's see what happens. Create solid form, and there we get this little projection here around the edge of the roof. Okay, so this one here, we can say that this is going to be whatever we want. Really, if we want to keep it as schematic office, then that's fine. You can change it to any of these things here. I'm going to lump this in with, is that the office? That's the warehouse. So I'm going to put that one as warehouse. All right. This one here, that's schematic office. Okay, let's get this whole thing. And schematic office. Okay, so these should appear orange when I hit Finish Mass and change that visual style back to shaded. All right, so now you can see we've got some different, more complex geometry here. And I think that's it for as far as the form work. Obviously you can create voids the same way, but we'll take a pause here and maybe get back to some of these other tools that are available for like modeling by face. So we'll get back to this in a second, so stay tuned.